Hi, I'm Robert, and welcome back to another edition of the High Deseret Ranch channel. It's Truck Talk tonight, and I just finished up turning water and things of that nature. It's high water season, so I've got to take advantage of all that water that is coming down the mountain as possible. And it's nice to be done. It was a cooler day, sitting at about 38 degrees right now, getting the wind coming down off the mountain peaks of about 12,000 feet that did actually get a dusting of snow with the storm that rolled through. So it's nice to be in the old truck here and be able to talk to you. And there's something that I've been wanting to do a follow-up to a previous video of the massive calf die-off of 2023, but I hesitated because I wanted to see what would exactly happen with the spring runoff, especially here in Utah, where we've had record-breaking snow. I just want to go over some numbers with you, and this will be important to remember for moving forward. 2022, according to the USDA, the amount of beef cattle, specific to beef, mind you, there's close to 100 million when you consider all cattle, dairy cattle, things of that nature. But as far as beef cattle are concerned, there's just over 30 million. There was just over 30 million beef cattle in the entire U.S. Texas, good old Texas, being the top amount of cattle, just over 4 million. In the Western United States, excluding California, and I'm excluding California for a reason, you're going to see why, there's approximately 4.8 million cows, beef cows, and that's representative of 16% of the total beef population. In the Intermountain West, which you have Utah, Intermountain West and the Great Basin, you have Utah, Idaho, Nevada, parts of Montana, parts of Colorado, parts of Arizona, and parts of New Mexico. Let's see if I'm forgetting any other states. Did I say Wyoming, Idaho? There's 3.3 million, which is right around 11% of the total population. I'm getting a visitor, our nice ranch cat named Mittens. So he's a good fellow. I'm actually back at the house now. I just got back from the fields. So you have, again, the Intermountain West, which is 11% of the total population of all the beef cows. Everyone say hello to Mittens. And then another part that I want to talk about too is the Northern Plains, which is, of course, North Dakota, South Dakota, Kansas, Nebraska. They have 5.8 million, very respectable at 19%. Don't have as much data as it relates to what I'm about to talk about, but I do have something that is quite troubling moving into the middle and back half of 2023. So in my prior calf video about calf die-off, I talked about how here specifically in the west and more so Intermountain West and the Great Basins such as Nevada, Intermountain West being western half of Colorado, Montana, northwest portion of New Mexico, and basically all of northern Arizona, and then all of Nevada, and then Utah, and then basically cut Wyoming in half and go to the west. So that Intermountain West Great Basin region had some of the coldest temperatures on record this winter, or matched records previously set. And as far as snowfall, had record snowfall. And obviously the Sierra Nevadas got record snowfall, but the cows that graze, they weren't affected by all the snow and the cold, because obviously you have they're just in lower elevations in California, and there were some die-offs, but not significant. Anyways, in the Intermountain West alone, specifically in states like Nevada, Idaho, and even like Wyoming and Utah, they saw losses as high as on some farms and some ranches. I just talked to a guy tonight up in Lander, Wyoming, and another one in Riverton, Wyoming. They saw losses up to 65%. And I'm not talking on a ranch of just 15 or 20 cows. We're talking ranches that run 100 plus head, or a couple hundred head. So when you're talking 60 to 65% calf loss, these ranchers, even farmers, It's critical losses, to the point where they might be completely out of business. And who buys the ranch? I have no idea, because all the ranchers around them are also having the same issues. They're experiencing similar calf losses. And what's even more interesting, as I wanted to get to, is why I held off till now. And the numbers are still rolling in, but now that we're having massive runoff here, like in the state of Utah and other parts, is there's even additional calf losses and even some breed cow losses because of the flood waters, not only in pastures and meadows, but rivers and streams are overflowing, and the ranchers are trying to round up the cattle to get them in dry spots so they're not crossing these rivers that are swollen with water, and the calves and even breed cows, the mature cows, are getting washed downstream. And so, on top of the calf losses that they had with their calving season in February, March, and even into April, now in the back half of April and into May, they're experiencing even more calf loss because of the fact that this runoff situation. So, when you break down the Intermountain West, which, again, excluding California, the Western U.S. had 4.8 million. The Intermountain West has 3.3 million. Those previous states I mentioned, which is 11% of the total cow population in 2022 of all of the U.S. When you're looking at average calf losses, easily right around the 35%. Again, the numbers are still coming in. People are still reporting the USDA. Some other people just aren't even reporting because, again, as I talked about in my previous video, ranchers are a private bunch. They keep things close to the vest. They're more just those type of people. They just want to be left alone, and sometimes they even feel that they did something wrong when it comes to calf loss. It's a big hit, not only financially, but there's just something to be said that it's a life, and it's, in the case of a heifer, it's the way that the ranch can perpetuate and be viable into the future. So when you're experiencing a calf loss of, even 5 to 10% is horrible, but this year, no joke, 50% calf loss. I've talked to another guy out in Nevada. He had 68% calf loss, and he runs 250 head. And they're all, and again, if you're not familiar, basically when people have one bull per 25, so when I'm talking 250 head, they're basically all 250 females are having cows. Or having calves. The cows are having calves. So when you're approaching near 70% calf loss, those numbers are staggering, and you're just not going to recover. And I know some people say, well, the ranchers should know better. No, these are ranchers that have been in the business for 4 or 5, even 6 generations, and they know what they're doing. There's a place up in Utah that's especially been hit hard, and then southeast Idaho, and basically the western edge of Wyoming, the spine, so to speak, of the Rocky Mountains in Intermountain West. We're talking the coldest on average and consistently coldest temperatures in the U.S., not only due to the mountainous, but the elevation. The valley floors are 6,000 feet plus, and then you have mountains towering upwards of 14,000 feet. They experienced extreme cold. Now, I know it gets cold up in the Dakotas and Wisconsin, Minnesota, things of that nature, and you get a lot of snow, but day in, day out, the temperatures here in these valleys of Star Valley, Wyoming, you have places, like I say, in southeast Idaho, and then the north part of Utah. These places, it can be 3 or 4 months, and they don't even see above freezing temperatures. And this year was exceptional to that, where they literally they were smashing all sorts of records. It wasn't uncommon for them every single night to be 30 below zero, in the 30s to 40 below zero, and they barely even got above 0 degrees for a high temperature. So extremely cold temperatures where, I'll see if I can put it up, but they're still under snow in some of these parts. And so it's melting, but they're still under snow. So it's adding additional stress to the cow herds, and it's just not looking good, folks. And the point of all this is, if you have these types of calf losses and they're continuing to bleed numbers, the losses, because of all this spring runoff and flooding, it's going to affect the bottom line. I mean, if you go to even Walmart and buy the Walmart ground beef hamburger, you're pushing $4 a pound. You go to Costco, which is a little bit better quality, it's the same story for 80/20 ground beef. You're flirting with $4 or even higher. I don't know. Tell me, leave in the comment section below just how much you're paying for ground beef, and that's just ground beef. You know, when you start getting your other cuts, roast, steaks, things of that nature, it doubles or triples from there. But folks, with these calf losses that are coming in, and mind you, we're at the lowest numbers as of 2022. We were down from the year before in 2021, but we've hit record low numbers in the last 60 years as far as that, and we haven't recovered since the drought of 2010-11 in Texas, the northern and central plains. That's where the numbers really started to drop off. And as some of you watching, or you might have heard, or if you're living in these areas, Missouri, all those areas in the plains and upper plains in Texas, they got hammered with drought last year and were selling off like crazy. And so these replacement heifers that they were hoping to keep from last year are now are going to be even more valuable than usual because of the amount of massive calf die-off. But what that translates to is, you think the meat prices are high now at the grocery store, they're going to go even higher. And case in point, the latest market reports, even here in Utah, the Intermountain West, and I've checked some other states, you're $40 to $70 higher right now than you were a year ago. This time of year, $40 to $70 a hundredweight more. So, and the numbers, they've been fairly high as far as being the sell barns, but now the numbers are starting to drop because now ranchers are getting very skittish because of the fact that the losses are so enormous that they're trying to hold on to anything they can get. So the fact that this time last year, depending on the weight class of the calf, they're looking at $40 to $70 higher. So I've seen as high as $220, $240, 100 weight prices. We're talking insane amount of prices. And to give you an idea, where there's massive sell-offs in the fall when people have push out there at these cow-calf operations, the prices right now are even higher by about half that. So you're looking about $20 to $35 higher per hundredweight than even in the fall of 2022. So come this fall, with the amount of calves that are even just remaining, and the fact that meat suppliers and packers in these feedlots are desperate, and they've been desperate. They were desperate last year, and on top of the ranchers trying to sell off because they didn't have enough feed, they're desperate to meet that demand. They're desperate for supply to meet the demand, which leads me to my last point. You have now drought issues. Kansas, Nebraska, they didn't get the snow that they normally do. So a lot of these farmers that are looking that rely upon their normal feed sources for their cows and the cattle, they don't have it. And so you compound that with that problem. If things don't improve quickly for the plains and lower plains, central plains, you could be looking at even more sell-off, which means in the long run, the inventory of cows continues to decline. But folks, so again, going back to 3.3 million cows in the Intermountain West, 50% calf loss, you could easily see up to a 25% reduction overall minimum of the total amount of cattle population, which would put the numbers of the U.S. well under 30 million head of beef cattle. And depending on how things shake out for the plains in Texas, Missouri this year, as far as drought and things, even though there's been a lot of flooding where they actually need the rain and the water because it's all flooding on the Mississippi, we could see numbers as low in the 26 to 27 million head range, which again, the numbers for recovery are looking bleak. So continue to expect higher meat prices. But if you don't know me by now, or if you're new to the channel, welcome. But local. I talked to 2 ranchers and they think they're done in their 5th and 6th generation. They got hammered with the drought, and now they got hammered with an extremely hard winter. And at 55% calf loss, like this one rancher, he thinks he's done. Even if he has exceptionally good years for the next 2 or 3 years, which isn't going to happen, just ask most ranchers, he might just have to throw in the towel, which is tragic. And I hate the fact that there's constant bread and circus with national and local media distracting us from the real issues when, folks, we need to come together. We need to support each other. We need to be able to create that parallel economy, that parallel society. So go visit your rancher, see what you can do, see if you can buy a half or a full beef from him and line up a date with the slaughter and go pick it up, or maybe he can deliver it for you for a small fee. But help your local rancher out. If you live in these states that I've just mentioned, the Western United States, even the Northern Plains and Central Plains, help that rancher out. It might be the difference between staying in business and continuing on the family tradition instead of being bought up by these large corporate farms or the BLM, selling out to the BLM, which is happening. And so thanks for coming along. I hope that I gave you some food for thought, and that you will please like, subscribe, as there will be more truck talks here in the future and other amazing updates here on the ranch.